Hello all, I'm Wadabra. Welcome back to Adastra. In the previous episode, we had a big-ass lore dump. That's essentially what it was, and well-deserved too. But if I were to boil it down into a nutshell, the gist is this. Amicus finally began doubting his faith in the parents after Marco died, and as the new emperor of Adastra, he spoke with the Wolven parent, with a capital P, and demanded Marco be returned to him. The parents, being the manipulative assholes that they are, were more than happy to puppet Marco's body like a creepy-ass fleshy marionette, and stipulated that they will only do so if Amicus, for the rest of his life, unquestioningly submits himself to their will. So of course, Amicus does, and Marco comes back. But at what cost? That's the recap. Now go ahead and hit that like button. It's free and does actually help the channel. And while you're down there, hit that subscribe button too. There's really no reason not to. It will help me appease the almighty YouTube algorithm, and it'll ensure that you won't miss the next episode. Probably. YouTube's always changing shit, so who knows. And as always, content warnings, chapter times, and a link to my Patreon can be found in the description below. Let's get started. The following days are strange, to say the least. After what happened in the amphitheater, the Wolven population has seemingly taken a great interest in me. I guess I'm a sort of celebrity at this point. I got my first taste of this while lounging in the dining room, only half paying attention to the screens, when I realized that it's a reenactment of the trial by combat between Amicus and Cato. My character, portrayed by a small wolf wearing a rather uncanny human mask, jumps in at the last second to plunge the dagger into Cato's back. He's then stabbed directly in the throat by Cato, instead of being slashed, and stands for several seconds clutching at his neck, while Amicus tears out Cato's throat, then arrives just in time to catch me as he swoons back. I have to stop watching at this point. The memories of what happened too fresh and traumatizing for me to see played out, even if it's terribly acted. While I suppose it's nice to be liked by the general population, I can't help but feel it's for the wrong reasons. I'm definitely being portrayed as a noble savage of sorts, so in love with my master that I broke the rules to save him. Or I just didn't understand the rules well enough to abide by them. Either way, it makes me feel kind of uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Amicus is kept busy, of course. The quiet moment I'd had with him in the archives is actually the last really long moment alone I'd had with him since. Almost immediately after, Amicus was whisked away to various ceremonies and meetings as everything became official. Amicus is the emperor now, and he seems to be taking to it rather well, especially after the incredibly stressful events preceding it. His personality has always been a bit silly and a bit immature, but after taking the throne, he's taken on a persona of a cool, calm leader instead. It is a side of him that I've seen occasionally, and while I'm happy to see him fitting the new role well, I can't help but feel a bit sad that he's had to quash that playful, outgoing side of himself. I suppose it's one of those parts of having to grow up. With everything so fresh, I try to stay out of Amicus's way for now, knowing he has so much to do. But on the second day after the trial, I'm told by Com that Amicus wants to speak with me. I open the door and immediately hear Virginia's voice, raised slightly in annoyance.
No. Lux is the city in desperate need of funds right now. Lex is doing very well.
Well, I'm sorry, but the names are rather similar, are they not? I meant Lux, anyway.
Even if you meant it that way, I can guarantee you the triumvirates won't be pleased hearing you mistakenly refer to which city they are from.
All right. Calm down. I'll be sure to remember that. And don't yell at me in front of the triumvirates, please. You'll only give my critics more weaponry if I'm seen allowing my own sister to treat me in such a way.
All the more reason not to make mistakes then.
The two seem to realize that I'm there finally, and cease their argument. Marco! We were just finishing our conversation.
Were we? I'm going to drill you on all of this again on our flight to the city.
Virginia makes her way past me, pausing to rest a paw on my shoulder.
Maybe I should put you in charge of my brother's studies. At least he listens to you.
The she-wolf rolls her eyes before disappearing through the door, leaving us in silence. Then Amicus lets out a big, heavy sigh that seems to resonate through the entire room. Gods, she's relentless. Isn't that a good thing? I suppose, but it doesn't make it any easier to deal with. Amicus walks toward me and immediately takes me up into a deep hug, followed by a kiss. I kiss back, feeling Amicus's tense body relax against mine, and I feel happy at the idea that I might be able to help to relieve his stress so easily. He finally draws back, smiling as he does. How have you been? I know I've been rather absent lately, but... I know, official business and everything. But I've been okay, just trying to adjust to all the new. I sweep a hand around me, then hesitantly bring it to my neck, to the wound that the parents had somehow healed. My trachea, my vocal cords, they've all been replaced and repaired with... something. I try not to think about it, and I have gotten used to it for the most part. Amicus brushes a paw through my hair, looking me over. Well, I hope you've been adjusting smoothly then. What was it you wanted to talk about? Amicus pulls his paw back, and the look on his face starts to worry me. Is it about what happened with the parents? At this point in time, I know that something involving me happened while I'd been unconscious, but for whatever reason, I'd been kept unaware of the conversation that happened between Amicus and the parents. Amicus nods, rubbing an arm awkwardly. Yes. It's rather complicated, so it may take me a moment to explain it all. The wolf guides me to the sofa, and we sit side by side as Amicus drapes an arm around my shoulder. Over the next few minutes, he tells me of the deal he made with the parents, that he'd submitted himself to their will, if only to bring me back to life. It's a similar decision to what I had to make, and I shake my head. I don't like that. Why are they doing this to us? Amicus shrugs loosely against me, shaking his head as well. I honestly don't know, but I can tell you that my view of them has changed quite a bit since what happened. So what? Now you have to do whatever they say, or something bad happens to me? Again, my hand drifts up to my neck, and I wonder if there's something more to the mechanics in my throat. An irrational part of my mind wonders if maybe there's some type of self-destruct mechanism built into it. I doubt that, but I feel that maybe they would make it difficult for us to stay together if I did. Our meeting together, it was planned by the parents. This was something I'd sort of assumed on my own, but I still bristle nonetheless. See? They're using our love against us. This is just fucked up. Amicus just nods quietly, but draws me closer with his arm around my shoulders. So they just draw us together. And I was like, what, the most compatible human to you so that now they can make sure we do as we're told if we want to stay together? Again, Amicus is quiet, just holding me. I don't like this.
Neither do I.
So if it's your job to bring the Galaxias together, what's my job? Amicus takes another slow, deep breath, which only spikes my anxiety. In retrospect, I suppose it was a bit silly that I thought everything would be fine after Amicus became emperor. This is only the beginning.
Well, this is what I wanted to talk to you about.
I wait, feeling Amicus steel himself for what he's about to say, and I feel my anxiety grow. How bad could this actually be? Then he lets out the breath with a rush of words, seemingly trying to get the explanation out all at once.
The parents told me that your mission is to begin the process of integrating humans into the Galaxias.
I'm only starting to absorb that when Amicus takes another breath and starts another slew of words.
They want you to return to Earth and complete a series of steps to begin the integration process. A process that will take...
Amicus suddenly winces, as though the words themselves hurt.
That will take around 8 years to complete.
That last bit takes the longest for me to comprehend. 8 years? Like, I'll have to go to Earth for 8 years and do a bunch of crap to bring my planet into the Galaxias? Amicus nods, and I see the deep sadness on his face. And this explains why he wasn't exactly happy after we'd escaped the parental dimension. I find myself at a loss for words, even though there's so much I want to ask. Amicus tries to fill the silence.
Your planet won't be conquered or anything. Rather, you're already on a sibling-like level. You're unique in that you aren't exactly a sibling species, but you won't be under the control of another civilization, if that makes sense. Aside from the parents, of course.
That's a relief, I suppose. Though the more I learn about the parents, the more I'm unsure about any of this. While I'd once worried about the wolves invading Earth, I'm not sure I'd want the parents to be doing the same. The way we're being used like this, it's like we're just a pair of tools. It makes my skin crawl. And the 8 years, will I be able to see you? I see the corners of Amicus's muzzle dip down deeply into a frown before stubbornly pulling back up, the way they often did when he was trying not to tear up.
No, but I discussed with them those supplements that we take to extend our lifespans. You'll be able to take them to make those 8 years seem more negligible.
The way Amicus is talking, fast-paced and upbeat, tells me that he's trying to make this sound like it isn't a huge deal at all. But it is. 8 years. The arm around my shoulder brings me into a full-on hug now, pressing my face against his chest.
I know. It seems like a long time, and it is. But after that, we'll be free.
Amicus's voice is strained, like there's a heavy weight on his chest. We both know we won't be. And I'm gonna have to do all of that alone? Couldn't you come help me? Now I sound like a child. I can see Amicus's eyes glistening, but he stubbornly continues to smile.
You won't need my help. You're fully capable on your own. Besides, we'll see each other again as soon as your series of planned steps are completed.
Over the course of 8 years.
And once we reach that point, we'll be able to finally relax and...
But will we? I'm still trying to absorb the idea of a years-long mission. A mission that involves introducing all of Earth to the idea of sapient life beyond our planet. That idea is harrowing enough, but after being strung along by the parents like this, I have to wonder, how much more are they going to ask from us? This whole thing is just puppeteering. We're not in control of anything at all.
Marco.
Amicus reaches out to me as I stand up.
Please, I know this is hard. I've been trying to figure out a way not to drag you into this, but the parents seem intent.
This isn't fair, though. We paid our dues. I fucking died. Again, I sound like a little kid. I can't help myself. This really isn't fair at all. I didn't ask for any of this. Originally, I had Amicus to blame. He was the one that brought me here in the first place. Now, though, knowing that everything was planned and orchestrated by the parents, I feel powerless, like I didn't have any choice from the very beginning. I don't even have a say in this.
But you do. I haven't gotten to that part yet.
Amicus has his paws raised, and I can see that he's still trying to hold back tears. I want to lash out at something, but I know that this isn't his fault, especially now. So I try to calm myself, taking a few deep breaths and swallowing hard.
They told me that you can make a decision, just as I made mine.
I'm quiet for a moment, still breathing heavily.
You can choose not to accept the mission. They will not force you to do it. We have around 9 months before the mission begins.
I stare at the wolf, letting those words sink in. And if I don't accept, what are the consequences? That deep frown returns to Amicus's face.
Well, they won't provide transportation back to Earth. Of course, I'll likely be able to set it up for you now, but considering that the integration will be delayed, I would be disallowed from returning to see you.
More manipulation. I clench my hands into fists, willing the parents, wherever the fuck they are, to feel my anger toward them for doing this to us. So either I do what they say, or I never see you again?
Well, you could choose not to return to Earth. I'm not suggesting that be your decision, but it is one of the possibilities.
I look away, never having been so unsure of what to do in my entire life. This all feels so wrong. I'd always felt wrong about the parents, but I'd never suspected this. I need to go think about this. I'm starting to turn away when Amicus abruptly stands up. I think he's going to come after me, maybe wrap me up in another hug. Instead, he keeps his paws behind his back, looking at me with an expression of stoic duty.
All right. I'll be heading out to the city for part of the day to visit with a triumvirate. And whatever you choose, Marco, I will fully support you.
It takes me a moment to realize that Amicus is using his official face right now, and it's strange to have him use it on me. Even though I know he's doing it to make things easier for me, to not sway my decision based on his emotions, I hate that he has to do it. I shake my head and turn away, walking out of the room even as I hear Amicus make a strangled noise as he cuts himself off and holds back from saying whatever he was going to say. I walk briskly through the hallways, trying to gather my thoughts. want to spend time with Amicus, to go back to Earth, see my family, come back to Adastra. But no, these parents are meddling with my life, seemingly rendering every choice I make meaningless. If they can do all and see all, why are they messing with me and Amicus like this? I feel another hot flash of anger toward them as I turn a corner and run smack into something soft, furry, and white.
Ugh! What in the name of the gods?
It takes me a moment to recognize the voice, probably because of how disoriented I am from running into him. Sorry, Cassius. I finally focus on the indignant wolf as he angrily smooths down his fur.
Watch where you're going. You could have knocked me to the floor. You know what a catastrophe that could result in.
Despite his outrage, I'm actually kind of happy to see Cassius back to his old self. Just 2 days ago, he was bedridden, though recovering. A combination of Virginia inducing him to vomit and a quick delivery of an antidote left Cassius in a position to fully recover. Hello to you too, Cass. Cassius fixes me with a narrowed-eyed glare.
Since when did I give you permission to use my shortened name, human?
I shrug, simply adjusting my robe after having it disheveled from the collision. How are you feeling?
Changing the subject, I see. Well, never mind. I'm feeling fine, thank you. I can at least eat solid food now without retching. Though I doubt I'll ever be able to drink wine again without doing so.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I'm sure you are.
I shake my head, wondering why the wolf has to be so sour all the time. Maybe it's a side effect of always being second in line for everything. I see something similar in Neferu, though they just go about handling it differently. Maybe it's also because of his illness, always seen as weak and needing help, and he reacted by being a dick. Then again, it could just be because he is a dick. So, what are your plans now that...
Now that I've abdicated the throne and I'm leaving in disgrace?
You're not leaving in disgrace. I think the people are going to be really...
I'm already being made fun of for being one of the shortest-serving emperors in the history of the Empire. I'm the main topic in all of the comedies at the moment.
Ah. Cassius takes in a deep breath, closing his eyes.
Anyway, Marco, I wanted to thank you.
I almost get whiplash from the sudden change in tone and topic. What?
Oh, don't make me say it again. I'm simply thankful for you putting the Empire on a course that is somewhat tolerable, at least.
As opposed to being ruled by Kato?
Yes. While I might not believe that my brother is what is best for the Empire, he at least cares for it. And I suppose that's all I can hope for.
Weren't you negotiating a position with Amicus? Cassius looks at me suspiciously, though I have no idea why. I suppose having almost been assassinated and also being sabotaged by everyone in the palace has made him a bit wary.
I suppose he'll tell you anyway. So yes, I'm looking to become the Chief of Social Affairs.
He rolls his eyes at my lack of reaction.
In other words, I will be making sure that Adastra's most vulnerable are taken care of, that all will someday receive the financial, social, and especially medical care that they need.
I perk up. Oh, good. That's kind of what you were all about with your campaign, right?
Yes, it will be nice to focus all of my energy on that, rather than the bothersome politics that come with being emperor. I don't envy Amicus.
He eyes me closely.
I know you're very close with him, so please, if I must ask anything of you, It's to make sure that he does not forget those outside of the triumvirate cities. Their situation is desperate, and if we are truly going to reap fortune from an alliance, they should be the first to benefit, not the Adastran elites.
It's one of those rare moments that Cassius is being completely genuine with me, so I nod earnestly. Of course. I also plan on making sure that Amicus remembers the Wolven children, and to right the wrongs of what the past rulers had done to them. There's a lull in the conversation, and I try to think of something to say, to thank Cassius for in return. And, thank you for understanding our position, for deciding to step down when we asked.
You threatened me with outright humiliation if I did not.
I try to hold in a sigh of my own at the wolf's frustrating attitude, even if my attempt at some form of diplomacy with him was clumsy. Yeah, well, thanks anyway. Cassius grunts non-committally, then looks past me.
Anyway, I must be going to the city. I have an appointment.
That's when I remember Alex. I never did see Cassius's reaction to finding out about the cat's treachery. Amicus had been furious when I told him, and I'd practically had to hold him back from marching out into the gardens and strangling the cat himself. He was especially furious when I told him that I'd made a deal with Alex to keep him from facing the consequences of sabotaging the entire empire. Amicus had settled on banishing Alex from the palace to some high-security apartments in the center of Adastra City. Cassius has been visiting him there ever since. While I don't know what the state of their relationship is, I suppose even high treason isn't enough to stop Cassius from seeing the cat again. They must be pretty close, even closer than I'd initially thought. I'm curious, but stop myself from asking, as I know that would only lead to more glares and sneers from the wolf. So instead, I bow and step aside, a bit surprised when Cassius bows in return, even if it's mostly just a half-hearted nod. I watch the white wolf disappear out through the main entrance, and I wait a few moments before taking the same route out into the gardens. While the conversation with Cassius had distracted me for a bit, my mind wanders back to what Amicus had just told me. I can't stop the feeling of constriction that seems to wrap around me, bound to the will of those supposedly all-knowing creatures. I sit for a while on a bench, contemplating everything, while my hand absently caresses my repaired neck. I press a bit harder against my skin a few times, and I don't like the unfamiliar shapes and edges that I feel. I'd asked Amicus how the parents had done it, how they'd had the time to place the machinery in my neck, and also make me start breathing again. But it turns out that it's one of those parental tech things that no one really understands. It seemed to have happened instantaneously, as if I'd been whisked away somewhere else to have the surgery before being placed back into the archives. Apparently, when Amicus's father had asked the parents to restore Kato's sight, it had just happened overnight, the old wolf surprising everyone when he walked into the dining room with his brand new visor. That had been over a decade ago. And that gets me wondering why the parents did that if they knew Cato would go on to do the things that he did. He blatantly got in the way of their plans. Why would they let him hold such an influential position in the Empire, let alone restore his vision? Interference is to be kept to a minimum. I can practically hear the monitor say it. I sigh, just sort of wishing that the parents didn't exist at all, that this other wasn't eating away at the edges of our universe, which is apparently the root of all of this. That's something else that I don't understand. From what I gathered, the Galaxius has already known about the other, just vaguely. Amicus had almost described it to me when I first arrived here, and had been told that all life originated from the same source. Except for the other. A different type of life. So different from us, that we can barely understand them. But now we know that they're out to get us. Or something. I just can't help but feel so distant from all of this. The results of the struggle between us and them being millennia away. We don't even know how many millennia. As I'm becoming more and more depressed over all of this, I hear footsteps on the path. I look up, half expecting to see Alex, even as I remember he's been banished from the palace. Instead, it's Neferu, and he strolls along the pathway, paws behind his back, with his usual suave smile plastered to his muzzle. I have to wonder how he keeps that expression on all the time, as it's clear he doesn't see me until he comes a bit closer. When he does spot me, his ears flick up, and I get a glimpse of white teeth as his smile broadens. I smile back, even though I'm not in the best mood to chat at the moment. Still, I scoot over to make room on the bench, and Neferu greets me with a bow, along with an "Hotep be with you," before he sits next to me, crossing one leg over the other.
Beautiful day.
He says it wistfully, and I just nod in agreement.
Though I can see that you're not enjoying it as much as I am. Is everything all right, Marco?
I'm about to give him a generic answer, before I sigh and lean back on the bench. No, not really, Neferu.
Ah, I find that a bit surprising considering the way things have gone the past few days.
I shrug. I mean, aside from almost dying, I guess everything here is good. But out there? I nod up at the sky, at space. I just don't know what to do.
Perhaps I could offer some advice?
I remember then that Amicus had told me to keep the revelations about human civilization a secret, at least until the parents give further instructions. I don't know. I think I'm just stressed about going home. About how I'm gonna do it, you know?
Ah, I definitely understand. For I am in a similar boat. Unfortunately, I have little advice on that particular matter.
I glance over at him, watching as he rhythmically bounces his foot about, wiggling his toes and claws. Is Kimia still pissed about what happened?
Oh yes, furious. They're still threatening to cut all diplomatic relations with Adastra if Amicus doesn't make things right somehow.
Make things right?
Yes, despite the fact that my family very nearly despises me, they actually despise that our name has been sullied by woven disrespect.
How you were almost executed?
That, and also the fact that Kato released the footage of his attack on my person before the scheduled execution. It's been in heavy rotation on the news channels ever since.
Oh. I haven't watched much Adastran TV after seeing the reenactment of my own death, so I guess I've been missing Neferu getting kicked in the balls over and over again. Well, you know the wolves. They just like any sort of drama.
It's been spread across the entire Galaxius. I suppose seeing a Chemian in such a position is rather amusing to everyone, siblings and children alike.
I look over at Neferu again, but his light, carefree demeanor continues as he simply seems to be soaking in the scenery. Are you doing all right? Neferu looks at me then, his smile becoming a bit more warm.
I am fine, Marco. But if I'm being truthful, I am embarrassed. But that's nothing new for me.
I frown. I can count the number of times I've seen you embarrassed on one hand, Neferu. You're downright shameless. I smile to lighten my words, and Neferu just chuckles.
You probably know by this point that I'm not often genuine. It comes with being a diplomat. And the Pharaoh's son.
There's a lull in the conversation as we both just watch the gardens, listening to the birds and watching the bees hover from flower to flower. That's when I'm reminded of something. So, what made the Chemians want to start an alliance? Isn't it pretty groundbreaking for siblings to work together? Like, isn't that against the purpose of the Galaxius? I play dumb, like I don't already know it isn't. Neferu quirks an eyebrow at me.
That's a surprising question. Well, to put it simply, we studied the earliest histories of the Galaxius and came to the conclusion that it was never the intent of the parents for us to be competitors. If you don't know, the goal of a sibling race and its children is to achieve parental status. To do that, we must be able to achieve intergalactic travel. We're slowly realizing that this may not be possible without the cooperation of all sapient life in the galaxy.
I nod in understanding. So it seems like the Chemians were already hip to this grand plan, either by actually figuring it out themselves or with the help of their own parent. This makes me wonder if they might know more about the thing lingering on the edges of the universe. Do you know much about the other? Now Neferu turns on the bench to really look at me, furrowing his brows.
Another interesting question. Did you have some sort of experience with the parents when they healed your wounds?
Yeah, kind of. Just really vague stuff. So I'm just curious about it is all.
Well, it is an entity that spreads through the universe every few billion years. It originated from somewhere other than the original source of life, the source from which we all came.
His choice of words is confusing me. Is it like alive?
Is it alive like you and I? No, not really. It is more of a machine, I suppose. On the edge of life, but it needs sapient life to exist.
Oh, like a virus?
Yes, though even viruses originated from the original source. The other is truly something different.
And it feeds on life? Our life, I mean?
First, I should say that what we know about it is very, very limited, and the majority of that information is likely wrong. Really, just ghost stories.
Well, what are these ghost stories? Neferu sighs, and I realize that he's not exactly interested in this topic.
How to put it? Well, it's thought that in the half-dozen or so times that the other has spread through our part of the universe, it has left behind small, patchy portions of itself. It is technically all around us, but very weak, though it is thought that highly concentrated portions of it attach to tangible things, or occasionally pass right through us.
I feel a little tingle run down my spine. And what does it do? Neferu shakes his head.
I'm sure your people have stories of phenomena that are unexplainable. Perhaps an abandoned building that is inhabited by malicious spirits? Possibly a creature that defies all logical explanation, yet sporadically appears in a particular forest.
Wait, like supernatural stuff? I give the jackal an incredulous look, and he shrugs and laughs.
So the story says. They also say that sapient consciousness is used by the other to project these manifestations, and that the sapient's reaction to these projections feeds the entity. Personally, I feel that the legends surrounding the other are simply a catch-all for anything that is feared, or poorly understood, or just the product of a bored society.
I think back to what little I know about ghosts, monsters, even aliens or UFOs, and immediately the idea is too ridiculous for me to accept. Why haven't I heard of this while I've been here?
You probably have, but just didn't understand the topic at the time. Either way, it's never a serious worry on anyone's mind, considering how rarely this entity makes contact with our side of the universe.
I just stare at the ground, not really sure of what to say. Like Neferu, I find myself not very interested in this topic anymore, and our discussion moves on. We talk of Neferu's plans, when he might return home, and how I might help him secure the alliance. Eventually, he gets up to return to his room for a nap, leaving me to sit on the bench in silence. If I'm being honest, the conversation has left me feeling even less convinced by this intergalactic war that the parents are apparently getting ready for. It sounds more like we're getting ready to fight off an army of space ghosts rather than anything real. I sit there for a long while, opening my mind a bit, kind of hoping that the monitor will swing by and dump a little more information on me that I can work with, even though I know that's not really in his nature. But things stay predictably quiet, and as I'm thinking about heading back to Amicus's room to see if he's returned, Calm's voice makes me jump.
Amicus would like to let you know that he is currently in the bath, and if you would like to, you can join him. However, he wants to make it explicitly clear that it is your choice, and that if you need more time.
Thanks, Calm. I'll head there now.
Yes, Marco.
I immediately spot Amicus as the door slides open, and I see the wolf jolt up from leaning back against the edge of the pool, before quickly leaning back again, raising a paw casually. I walk through the steamy air to stand next to the bench behind Amicus, and he looks back at me with a gentle smile.
Soak with me?
I nod wordlessly and slip out of my robes and underwear before walking to the edge of the pool. With a little hop, I dip in quickly all at once, mostly used to the scalding temperatures at this point. As I come up, Amicus reaches out to me and I press up next to him, fitting against the curve of his chest in that familiar, easy way. How was the meeting with the triumvirates?
Good, good. Lots of seemingly pointless talk and etiquette. But as you and I know, it's necessary.
As long as there aren't any riots.
Yes, as long as there aren't any of those.
We sit in the hot water for a while, and I enjoy the way it makes my worries seem so far away, locked behind the doors to the bath. I really should do this more often. But of course, that's not the main thing on Amicus's mind right now. He clears his throat nervously.
How did thinking about, did you make your No, sorry.
Amicus trails off in the most awkward way possible, and I laugh a little bit, though it's more of a sad laugh. A little, but I really don't know. Amicus, I just...
Do what you feel is right.
The whole reason we met is because of this purpose they've given me, and I really don't want to cause delays or drag some other human into this, but something feels really off about this. Amicus nods.
Well, I don't believe that you should be forced to take on duties that were thrust upon you without your consent. It's cruel, and I want you to choose what you feel is right.
I give Amicus a look. Hasn't that been your whole life?
Well, yes, but I'm talking about you.
I smirk. Oh, I see. The silly, dumb ape who can't handle big boy responsibilities. Amicus's reaction to my teasing is instant and visceral.
No, I would never.
Sorry, I was just kidding. I shouldn't make fun about that. Amicus settles back again, still looking concerned.
It's all right. I just don't want you to ever feel that way again.
Amicus sighs deeply.
Also, I do believe we would have met somehow, even without the parents intervening.
Now I really give Amicus a look.
Seriously?
Of course! Something this special can't be stopped by the likes of time and space.
Amicus starts pulling me into his body, nuzzling me. Anyway, I'm not completely sure yet. I need time to think about it. And we do have 9 months.
Take your time, but on the off chance that you do choose to go, you must promise me one thing.
I feel a little apprehension at that. Yes?
Well, 8 years is quite a while for a human lifespan, so I know you rejected them initially, but please, start taking the life extension medication. There is a formula especially for primates. I need you around for as long as I am, Marco.
I realize then how well Amicus is taking this whole 8 years thing, and I have to wonder if he's just trying to make it sound less bad than it actually is. 8 years is a long time, whether you're a human or a wolf. I'd actually forgotten about the lifespan extending medication after Amicus had told me about it. For whatever reason, extending my life by decades, even hundreds of years, didn't really appeal to me. Even now it doesn't really, especially after what I experienced in the Greater Intelligence. But if it makes Amicus happy, of course. Welcome to the after reading. Since I didn't do one of these for part 21, we're pulling double duty today. And this script is already ballooned into more than 2,600 words, and I still don't feel like I've done it justice. So get yourself a snack and strap in. This is gonna get messy. But first, a bit of a confession. As I'm sure most of you noticed, AP Gleon pronounced all the names more accurately than I do, and he really only did that because I thought it would be funny, since I'd been called out on my mispronunciations before. But I also swear that when I looked up how to pronounce the characters' names a few years ago, the internet told me to pronounce them the way I do in the reading. Now, though, the internet tells me I'm wrong, at least with Kato's name. I don't know, maybe it's the Mandela effect. Who knows? Alright, now that my pronunciation crimes are out of the way, let's talk about the royal siblings real quick. As it turns out, Cassius actually survived. Good for him. Looks like nearly being assassinated was one of the best things that ever happened to him. It would seem that the more fascist and isolationist aspects of his campaign were more Kato's influence than his own. And without the old wolf's metaphorical paw around his neck, he's made a hard pivot towards socialism, even if his taste in men is still terrible. Then we have Virginia. She's now Amicus's chief advisor, just like she wanted, which means Marco and Amicus held up their end of the bargain. And I'm sure being Adastra's first girl boss will be nothing but the most positive experience for her from here on out. Okay, now let's get into this shit for real. Let's start with what I mentioned in the intro, how Amicus was forced to confront his beliefs about the parents, how he began to doubt them, and how he essentially sold his soul to them in exchange for Marco's life. No matter how he may actually feel deep down, he must now play his part, be absolutely loyal, and do the parents' bidding without question or resistance. Lifelong servitude in exchange for the life of the man he loves. Which just seems absolutely insulting, doesn't it? Especially since Marco only died because Cato killed him. And Cato was only able to kill him because, as Marco points out in this episode, the parents restored Cato's vision and allowed him to gain power by killing the former emperor, imprisoning one heir, and using the other heir as a puppet. As Marco again points out, if the parents do have a bird's eye view of everything going on, couldn't they have easily prevented this by not restoring Cato's sight? Marco doesn't come right out and say it, and maybe he doesn't quite make the connection himself when he's pondering why. But it seems to me like the parents' approach of minimal interference is just a bullshit excuse to not fulfill requests that don't align with their plans. Which would imply that Kato's plans were either part of, or became part of the parents' plans. They needed a way to get the wolves back on track, and getting the former emperor out of the way to put Amicus, who is much more socially mindful than his father, on the throne, was probably the first step in that plan. But then, what to do about their executioner, Cato, who has now served his purpose and is only getting in the way? Well, setting Amicus up with a gay alien lover would be a surefire way to get xenophobic Cato to do something stupid. And with the correct movement of their pawns, they could not only be rid of him, but gain 2 lifelong servants to continue propagating their plans. And this idea is further reinforced by what the Monitor told Marco moments before he died, that he was on the correct path. He was told this not long after he was shown a vision of his own death, and was told that this fate could be avoided if he submitted himself to their will and followed their guidance. Sure, it was a blatant lie, which they even admit to after Marco dies, but it was in line with the parents' plan. This is something I believe Amicus is now fully aware of, especially since he was the one that kept brushing off Marco's concerns and insisted that he put his faith in them. Amicus's reaction after Marco dies is further evidence of this. He blames himself, even though he knows he was being manipulated. It was his gods who did this to Marco, the same gods he was trying to get Marco to trust, just as blindly as he once did. He even admits to himself that he'd been making himself feel better by believing that Marco had his own free will, that he could make his own choices and was free to do as he pleased. But he realizes now, from the moment of his abduction, Marco was forced into a situation in which he had no agency. Hell, even at the beginning of the story, when Marco had gotten himself free of his bindings and had decided to fight back against his abductor, his decision was interfered with to ensure no lasting harm came to Amicus. And I think this is what moves Amicus to apologize to Marco when he's temporarily brought back in the parental space. It's actually probably the biggest apology Amicus has ever made in his entire life, even going so far as to acknowledge that, even if this had all been part of the parents' plans, it doesn't make any of it right. It doesn't fix any of the violations Marco has been forced to suffer. Amicus's new concern for Marco's free will then takes center stage during the conversation he has with the parents, while they're puppeting Marco's body like a creepy flesh marionette. He specifically asks them if the decisions they're presenting him with will in any way take away from Marco's free will. Of course, they claim that it won't, but we already know that the parents lie to get their way, so I trust their word about as far as I can throw them. And since they are non-corporeal beings, that's not far. The same seems to be true for Amicus now as well, but there's little he can do about it since he's vowed to be the parents' loyal puppet for the rest of his life. I think this is why the parents pivot hard into gaslighting mode, since it's not long after admitting that they lied to Marco that they tell Amicus, as they're using Marco's life as a bargaining chip to get him to swear loyalty to them, that only they will speak truth to him. The liars, claiming to be the sole supplier of truth. As Captain Jack Sparrow once famously said, "I'm dishonest, and a dishonest man you can always trust to be dishonest." The parents are familiar enough with Amicus's character to know that a promise given by him is rock solid. If he swears loyalty to them, especially if it's to keep Marco alive, he will not waver, no matter what. The poor wolf was already religiously inclined, and the more religious someone is, the more likely they are to hold conflicting beliefs and live their lives in a state of perpetual cognitive dissonance. This is what Amicus was already doing, and this is what Amicus must do even harder now. His previous view of the parents may have been shattered, but he can't act like it has been, or he risks losing the one person who's ever seen and loved him for who he really is. He made the promise, so he must now gaslight himself into believing it was the correct decision, even though under any other circumstance, he never would have submitted himself after what they did. I don't even think they were telling the truth about Amicus and Marco not being a parallel to Drusus and Mira. Despite telling Amicus that the Drusus and Mira situation did not play out the way Amicus believes, we can't just ignore that mysterious she that extracted herself from the amalgamation with the desire to speak to Marco. Conveniently, Marco never got a chance to speak with this mystery entity, even though an educated guess would peg that entity as Mira herself. Maybe she wasn't given the opportunity to speak because of what she might have to say. The parents have been working on their plan for 20,000 years, and Mira would have died 10,000 years ago. Given her unique situation before the wolves went all isolationist and warmongery, if anyone has dirt on the parents, it's probably her. Mira tangent aside, poor Marco may have it even worse than Amicus. First, he was already worried about what might happen if the wolves found Earth. Now he's been given the task of going to Earth and indoctrinating the world himself. He could refuse, as was pointed out, but then some other human would have to go through what he did, and the end result would be the same. Earth is going to be brought into the Galaxius, one way or the other. The lying, manipulative space gods demand it. Second, as an outsider, Marco was outspoken about the parents from the very beginning. He too got manipulated into submitting to the parents' will, and now they've replaced his voice, the main thing he was using to criticize and cast doubt about them, with a piece of their own parental tech. Tech they presumably can manipulate via their direct connection through the lingua. This brings us to the next topic I've been thinking about. I don't think the afterlife thing we witnessed in parental space is actually real. I think it's a sort of Matrix-esque simulation, and I think this for one simple reason: the lingua. By the time the parents are using it to puppet Marco's body, we've already come to accept the device as something akin to a universal translator. But we've also seen it change the trajectory of Marco's arm while he was fully conscious. And we've also seen the different members of the royal family more or less forget about the investigation into the cause of the former emperor's death, until Marco insisted Virginia copy the files when they broke into the archive. Clearly, it's far more than a universal translator. What if its primary function is actually to make a copy of the host's mind, and every other function are just bonus features? That at least would help explain the time dilation the characters experience while in parental space. How the time seems to be moving normally while in it, while time is barely moving on the outside at all. So, that said, I'm now of the opinion that if Marco had not been given a lingua, which Amicus just so happened to find an extra of, when he went into that coma after contracting aviopox, he wouldn't have just been dead. He'd have been dead. But with the lingua, the parents just so happened to have a backup of his mind set and ready to restore once they put his body back into working order. And even then, Marco did make a comment about how the new skin didn't feel quite right. And listening to this in the edit, I realized that I wasn't clear on the point I was trying to make here. So to clarify, what I'm saying is that it seems that the parents are perfectly capable of repairing organic biology. Marco's skin was not all replaced with metallic-looking synthetic polymers, or anything super obvious like Marco's neck wound or Kato's visor. Once the old skin sloughed off, it was like the pox had never happened. No mention of pox scarring or anything, which, in my mind, means they choose to make their interventions obvious and mechanical, maybe as a form of control, a physical reminder of their benevolence to all who see it. Regardless, I think my point is, the parents' capabilities seem to be tied directly to their technology, and the lingua is their foundation. If you don't have a lingua, you're not in the Galaxius. Humans don't have linguas. Yet. And according to Amicus's reaction about the size of the human population, there are a hell of a lot more humans out there than there are wolves. And when you're a cosmic space deity, those are potential followers. The next and last thing I want to talk about is less of a thing and is more me trying to not pull my hair out while thinking about things that aren't adding up. So I apologize in advance if I give anyone else a headache. Okay, so we know that all life came from the same source, That's why life is so similar no matter what planet or moon you're on. Someone or something, possibly the parents, but probably something else, did a panspermia. The oldest known remains of modern Homo sapiens are those found at an archaeological site in southwestern Ethiopia, dating to about 215,000 years ago. The earliest definitive domesticated dog remains date back to about 15,000 years ago. And while wild grains were collected and eaten well over 100,000 years ago, agriculture as we know it developed around the world around 12,000 years ago. And the Roman Empire came into power just over 2,050 years ago. We can be even more generous and push that date back to the founding of the city of Rome in 753 BC, and that's still less than 3,000 years ago. Now, according to the story we heard from Amicus, about 10,000 years ago on Adastra, the sibling cultures got fed up with the wolven bullshit and turned their backs on them, which resulted in the wolves turning isolationist. Then the wolves abandoned their parent, Romanus, and the empire became starbound, and their influence has been diminishing ever since. So, is it just me, or do these dates not add up? How could the wolves have uplifted humanity, or at least a small part of it, when they were well into being starbound? When Amicus went to Earth to find an exotic pet, he literally used the last bit of stretch drive that the wolves had available, which to me implies that they had been rationing its usage. The wolves are also in the habit of stunting their children, which humans are definitely not stunted. And let's not forget that the Chemian War started because the wolves were abandoning their children, and the Chemians were stepping in to uplift them fully. So spending the last bit of a precious resource like the stretch drive to start a new uplift program so far away really doesn't make sense to me. Continuing on the subject of things not adding up, but maybe relevant to the previous ponderings, if all life develops pretty much the same way everywhere, birds are birds, spiders are spiders, what's up with all the anthropomorphic sapients? Could that be a direct result of parental uplift? Let's say the parents were aware of Earth, and by extension humans, before they decided to uplift the other races. Now, as incorporeal beings who have no concept of what it's like to have a physical body, if they were to uplift other races, wouldn't it be convenient to have a pre-existing template? Like, for example, a race of bipedal apes with unusually large brains. The parents themselves claimed that humanity was an experimental microcosm, now a successful one. But what does that mean exactly? Now, let's look at the definition of microcosm. A community, place, or situation regarded as encapsulating in miniature the characteristic qualities or features of something much larger. So, the collection of different sibling cultures all existing together on one planet would seem to fit that definition. But humanity has never been at peace with itself, especially between different cultures and religions, which seems to be the goal the parents have for the sibling species and their children. So maybe that's not what they meant. They did go on to say that humanity was now a successful microcosm. So to me, that statement better supports the idea that the siblings were all uplifted to resemble humans. But if that were the case, then what? The parents introduced their cultures to Earth before trying it on the siblings? But no, that can't be either, because the timelines just don't add up. Okay, so scratch that. New idea. Maybe, one by one, the sibling species discovered Earth and attempted to uplift humans like the parents did to them, and they did to their children. But for whatever reason, their meddling just didn't fully work. But then that doesn't explain how the wolves got to Earth for an entire uplift program while they were starbound. So I don't know. This has all been driving me crazy, and it's just been simmering in the back of my mind for years at this point. It's been years. Yeah. So, what do you all think? Share your theories in the comments below. I would love to read them. Now, before I end this thing, I would like to take this opportunity to thank my patron, Charlie, and now also Lying Sora, for making sure I did not run out of beer this month. Thanks again, Charlie. As for the rest of you, if you enjoyed this video and you've made it this far, remember to give it a like share it with your fellow degenerates, and make sure you theorycraft in the comments below. Until next time, thanks for watching. Okay, time to record the intro. The intro. That's too close to the mic. Hello all. Nope. And as the new content warnings, chapter times, and a link to my Patreon. oh, what the fuck? It would seem that the more fascistic. Well, setting Amicus up with a gay alien lover would be a surefire way to get xenophonic, and their empire became Starbrown.